So, Shudit, I think we are very much on time now. You can start the proceeding.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back. We are going to start our second session titled Energy Cooperation and BIMSTEC, which will be conducted by Professor has held key positions in our national and international bodies, including the South Asia Foundation and the International Security Advisory Board of India. Professor Lama has authored numerous books, research papers, and reports. His expertise in energy cooperation and cross-border energy trade has positioned him as a leading voice in the South Asian energy landscape. The session rules remain same. Professor Lama will deliver his lecture first. Request Professor Lama to start his session. Over to you, Professor Lama.
Right. So, thank you very much. I'm going to primarily focus on the trading part of it. How do we do power trading? Because in some cases, we have already made major dent into it. So therefore, you know, when you talk about the energy security in BIMSTEC, I think we have two very crucial perspectives. First perspective, of course, is of sustainable development perspective. But given the geopolitics in South Asia and in BIMSTEC, I think given the locations of these member states, it is very important to look into the security militaristic perspective of energy security. Structures, right? Then you find that one can find that the very nature and direction of sources of energy supplies, demand, consumption, distribution pattern, and related geopolitics, it actually calls for a regional approach to energy security. Because in a situation like this, we find that if you do not have a regional approach, then individual country, member country in BIMSTEC would not be able to do much. And that has been the case in many of the regional groupings in Southeast Asia, in Central Asia, and of course in African and Latin American countries. For us, particularly in BIMSTEC, energy resources, distributions, and use, are very skewedly distributed. This is the basic resource distributions and electricity installed capacity. Look at the distributions, right? Bhutan would be heavily dependent upon hydropower, Bangladesh would be dependent upon the coal part of it. Then you have Thailand, fairly well distributed, but again, concentrating on coal, right? Now, therefore, this particular table, in a way, explains that no individual nation in BIMSTEC can move alone, right? Because therefore, the interdependence and sustained cross-border exchanges is the only way out. We will discuss about it in greater South Asia is concerned. Because the entire, idea of energy security is entangled in the geopolitics of the region, and where you find India's centrality, size, its exclusive geographical locations. Say, for example, it shares common border with all except Thailand, right? And in the group, except Thailand and Myanmar, they have no common borders with any of the BIMSTEC countries, right? In a small manner with Bangladesh. And the moment we talk about just geometric line as a kind of national borders, there will be widespread withdrawal syndrome, right? Precisely because national security parameters or national security considerations would be prime. Whereas if you consider borders as borderlands and not as geometric lines, then you tend to interact. If you consider the same border as borderlands, and the moment you consider them as borderlands, then you will suddenly find there will be galore of opportunities. And I'm going to discuss this particular energy security issues or trading issues in the context of what you call this galore of opportunities. You have four border junctions, right? As far as energy security is concerned, in the four corners of this region, right? And they have used regionalism mode, sub-regionalism mode, bilateral mode. As far as India, Sri Lanka, Maldives junction on the south, and the most critical would be India, Bangladesh, Myanmar, Thailand junctions on the east. Here, as we all know, India would be the central act because this is the connecting geography along with Myanmar, right? And the two most potential happening junctions today are India, Bhutan, Nepal junctions on the north, and India, Bangladesh, Myanmar junctions will have cascading and spiraling impact on energy exchanges, regional investments, trade connectivity, people-to-people contacts. And I'm sure all these are being discussed in this conference in greater details. At this particular junctions of BIMSTEC, we find that energy shortfall would be imminent. There will be ports, economic corridors, railway projects. So there are quite a few connectivities between India, Nepal, India, Myanmar, right? India, Bangladesh. Therefore, it's going to be very, very critical for us to look at it from a kind of renegotiations in terms of renewable energy and, of course, climate change impact, right? And we are going to essentiality of rational management of natural resources in the BIMSTEC countries would have to be there. That means what? That means if you really would like to do a kind of minimization of security, militaristic instabilities, then it would directly imply that cooperation, interdependence, and integrations are the only options available for the BIMSTEC countries. That would actually inspire a regional grouping like BIMSTEC to undertake cross-border energy exchange or trade. In terms of bridging of seasonality gaps, reduced cost per unit of energy supplied and losses in the systems, accelerated availability of supplies, improved system one act of power exchange would have far-reaching implications in integrating various stakeholders, the power producers, distributors, traders, transmission grid operators, pipeline builders, credit donors, households, transports, agriculture, technology exporting. It would just it would just involve all these stakeholders, and that confidence building would further have a spiraling impact on regional economic integrations and consolidations. The other aspect of is, once you have these distributors, these varieties of these agents and stakeholders, these stakeholders have tremendous absorptive capacity of actual shocks emanating from any major political actions, apprehensions, or dislocations. So they prevent conflictual precipitations. Very interesting to note that, the two governments of get into the conflictual mode precisely because these stakeholders would say, hey, if you go to the conflictual mode, we will suffer in this manner. Economy will suffer in this manner. So they will actually observe the shocks and tell their respective governments, hey, don't do anything that will disturb the energy exchange processes. And that has happened in a big way in other parts of the globe. And of course, this could lead to revenue generations, foreign exchange savings, health and education standards will go up, as we have amply seen in case of Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, and to a large extent, even in Southeast Asian countries. It will generate opportunities for income, cross-border internal migrations would happen. It was basically triggered by what really SARC process led to. So SARC process, BBI, and initiatives have really fed into the BIMSTEC process in bringing this transforming changes. Today, everyone talks about borders as opportunities, right? And soft border and attractive borderlands are the places where actual exchange will happen. India's act is, and there is far-reaching sub-regional and bilateral exchanges which are happening. Say between India and Bangladesh, land swap deals happen. First national grid to national grid interconnections has happened. Access to Chittagong, Mongla, Matarwari deep reports are happening, right? Now, see, all these exchanges have salutary impact on a critical variable like energy exchanges. If you see India, Nepal, you have cross-border interconnections. India, Nepal using Visakhapatnam port, talk of a common market, and India India assuring Nepal to buy 10,000 megawatt of electricity in the course of next 10 years. India, Bhutan, massive activities are going on, right? And Bangladesh will now get access to Bhutanese power, Nepalese power from Nepal, and India, Myanmar, and Thailand. You have connectivity projects, trilateral connectivity projects, and there are a strong likelihood of major transmission lines among these countries. So the best example, one of the best examples of manifestations or examples of things have improved in South Asia is actually reflected in India and Bangladesh relations, right? There are aberrations because of some domestic political compulsions, but India and Bangladesh in South Asia, including Bangladeshi institutions like CPD or BIISS or Bangladesh Unnayan Parishad, or in India, my own university, JNU, TERI, at that time Tata Energy Research Institute, right? In Pakistan, Pakistan Institute of Development Economics, Nepal Institute of Development Studies. When all of us used to conduct studies in exchanging electricity because uh, because of because the chicken neck corridor is already crowded. Today is the same government of India, right? Would say that let's do this, let's do that, let's do the trade and all. And that is reflected in six major exchanges between India and Bangladesh. First, of course, is the grid interconnections. Sorry, the exports from India started in 2013. Almost now about 500 to 800 megawatt. That's government to government. And grid interconnections happen between Berama local integration. It's a landmark starting projects. You have for the first time you have a you have a you have a very local geographies exchanging electricity. And the fifth is exclusively driven by the what you call the private operators, Adani Power. Adani Power did an exclusive Bangladesh Bangladesh centric in India, and one would be surprised that this Adani Power at Godda plant exported almost 63% of the total exports of electricity to Bangladesh during 23-24, and that would be uh, that would be around uh, that would be around uh, almost uh, almost $1 billion worth, right? $1 billion worth, and now Bangladesh will buy the sixth. Is very interesting because in the sixth category, India is just a transit provider, right? Electricity will be generated in Nepal and in Bhutan, and with the support, with the investment of Bangladesh, without the investment of Bangladesh, and all these electricity would be transmitted through India to Bangladesh, right? There is already an agreement to buy 40 megawatt to start with from Nepal. There is a kind of a major agreement between India and us, between Bangladesh and Bhutan. And for uh, buying this electricity from Nepal, Bangladesh has now a tripartite agreement with Nepal Electricity Authority, NTPC of India, and of course the Bangladesh Power Development Board, and this will be delivered through the 400 kV Muzaffar. These are very path-breaking projects, and it shows a new and more realistic matured relations between India, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Nepal, and further to Sri Lanka and other BIMSTEC countries, including Myanmar and Thailand. This also shows that there is now some kind of a harmonized, coordinated approach among various ministries within a particular country and among the countries. And it also indicates a generational shift in the bureaucracy of both these countries. Otherwise, this bureaucracy used to be full of national prejudices. It seems all those national prejudices are now sidelined. But the most beautiful part of it is for the first time, this is happening in a commercial and professional way, right? And national grids are interconnected. Now, people used to think about orthodox variety of national security. Today, they don't talk much about it. They talk about energy insecurity, human insecurity, right? And that has generated a kind of a un and and leaders have tended to discard their traditional orthodox positions. Now, this kind of exchange could actually lead to several other exchanges in education front, in health, in tourism, in technology transfer, in transport services, right? But please remember, all these also indicate that civil society institutions, universities, think tanks, academics, media and private sector, they have really played a significant role in arriving at this particular situation, right? And this is in the entire process. Now, how did we reach here? It's a it's a big example for other BIMSTEC countries and or BIMSTEC as an organization. We reached this position because we conducted constant and uninterrupted conversations and protected dialogues among various stakeholders. We also said that let's not talk about big things. Let's talk like to have power deficit. No country would like to have uh, hospitals running without power, educational institutions running without power, households running with power. So there was a tremendous public pressure. But more, very interestingly, in the last 20 years, we have brought so much of new knowledge and concepts in this part of geography. I still remember many of us from Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan, India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka would gather in a country like Nepal or sometimes in Bangladesh, talk for 3 days, 4 days, bring new knowledge, concepts about what is happening, who will gain how much, what is the science behind it, what are the economic implications of this, right? And that sensitization and capacity building of both local political leadership and bureaucratic excellence really helped. And I think BIMSTEC is now trying to undertake similar kind of ventures today that 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 you don't need to you don't really limit yourselves to sensitizing national political leadership because energy exchange would not happen typical locals of Myanmar and Thailand, Bangladesh and India, or Sri Lanka and India. So the local political leaderships and the local bureaucratic echelons have to be really sensitized. So you have transformative matrices. Today, it's a very, very interesting situation. There is a reversal of strategy. Everyone used to think that what first? Will it be the flows or the connections? Will it be first the generations and then the transmission lines? Many thought that you first generate, then transmission line will come. Today it is just the opposite, right? It is transmission lines are done first, generations would be would be done simultaneously, or as a kind of response, spontaneous response to transmission line, and distribution will take place, right? And this is the second very interesting is these are the projects which have touched the communities at the lowest possible level, micro level, right? And and these are now purely commercial ventures, and it ensures growth, human security, national security interest. And it has overcome the concept of emotive weight of resource nationalism. Oh, Nepal would say 30 years back, 20 years back, Nepal would say, oh, we will not let uh, India use our hydropower resources for a kind of any kind of cooperations would ask for little bit of erosion in the total control of resources of the host country. And that has started happening. The best part is you have multimodal connectivity taking place in South Asia, in the Eastern South Asia, and BIMSTEC also. Railway lines, waterways, transport, air connectivity, all kinds of things are happening. So if you have such multimodal connectivity, who will use this multimodal connectivity is a big question. If trade does not happen, what is the use of creating the Matarbari deep sea port? Who will use Matarbari deep sea port? Will Bangladesh alone be able to use fully the entire capacity of Matarbari airport, Matarbari deep sea port? Or will it require India's export, Nepal's export, Myanmar to participate, Thailand to participate in such kind of projects? Now, this is something very, very interesting. The countries in BIMSTEC have realized. Interestingly, India, which had severe reservations till about 10 years back, 20, 15 years back, about not allowing Indian transmission lines to be used by Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan, Myanmar to 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 exchange electricity from through India. It is the same India which has now done a cross-border electricity trade guidelines and implemented in 2021. It of course includes India, Nepal, Bhutan, uh, and Bangladesh, but it can be extended to Sri Lanka. It can be extended to Myanmar, to Thailand, like any other projects. Therefore, under these circumstances, what do we do? I have said there could be, everybody is looking forward. What is the best model? What is the most non-controversial model of energy exchanges among the BIMSTEC countries, right? So what I have done is I've given you a menu of 6 models of energy exchanges, 5 models of energy exchanges, right? If you want to do bilateral, you follow India, Bhutan, India, Nepal. If you want to have a sub-regional one between, say, India, Bhutan, Bangladesh, and Myanmar only, then you Greater Mekong region is the best example. If you want to have the regional one throughout all through uh, uh, involving all the countries, then the Southern African power pool is a very good example. And if you have to have a local integration, then our Palatana project between India and between Tripura and facility, right? Like India provides willing facility for electricity to go from Western Bhutan to Eastern Bhutan or Central Bhutan, right? In a certain extent, Nepal does the similar kind of things. So let's see what are the systems, and BIMSTEC could do this because it has already an MOU of BIMSTEC grid integrations of 2018. You have the first BIMSTEC center located in Bangalore, Energy Center. Then you have what you call it, uh, the first meeting of the BIMSTEC Energy Ministers Conference Center happened in last year in 2023. So they are now moving towards this. So we in the track 2, we in the research and academic institutions and professional and technical bodies is have to give governments in the BIMSTEC countries alternatives. These are the best ways. These are the possible alternatives so that they have a choice, right? This is what we're trying to do here. Bilateral between India and Bhutan. Can you imagine today Bhutan earns almost $280 million every year by just selling electricity. And it is more than 10% of the GDP of Bhutan and 58% of the gross domestic revenue. And Bhutan and India are connected through all kinds of interconnections, 400 kV SVDC, 232 kV lines, right? And India is looking forward to import more from Bhutan, right? Because Bhutan is undertaking a large number of projects, as I will see. Bhutan is also quite keen to do diversified its export market. Today it is in only India. So it is presently a monopsony situation. It was okay till all the projects were financed by soft loans of government of India. But today you have several private partners participating in Bhutan's. What will Bhutan do with these projects? With this electricity, right? And the planned joint ventures are taking place. Number of newer institutions, private institutions are going, right? And it would definitely trigger Bhutanese internal requirements, not even today also, not even 20% of what it generates, right? So when it goes to under construction projects, then the planned joint ventures, it will have massive scale production system. Look at the interconnections. The western part of Bhutan, the eastern part of Bhutan, the wheeling facility provided by India. Look at this facility, the wheeling facility, right? Oh, look at Nepal. Nobody thought that India and Nepal will have so many SVDC, high voltage direct current transmission line, 400 kV, completed Dalkebar, right? And the next ones are between Gorakhpur and Butol, Dalkebar and Sitamari, absolute money. So the transmission lines are emerging much faster than the generation. Because everybody knows that generation, once you have the transmission line, anyone would come and invest as far as electricity generation is concerned, and that can be transferred. Look at the transmission line between India and Nepal. World Bank study has done, and it says with 52 gigawatt, Nepal will have the heftiest change among South Asian countries, right? And it's going to be of a massive increase in the installed capacities. We have done ASEAN, the energy, the ASEAN Secretariat, the Policy Institute, the Japan Energy Economics, CII, and we in JNU have conducted studies as to who will gain how much. Williams much, right? Then the second best example is, if you don't want to do bilateral way, then please do sub-regional way. And we do the Greater Mekong region sub-region. It's a fascinating example. They have a regional power trade and coordination committee set up way back in 2004. Now it is replaced by another institutions, very strongly supported by Asian Development Bank, and 5 countries are involved: Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, Thailand, Vietnam, and 2 provinces of China, UNC, Yunnan, and Guangxi, right? And massive exchanges happen, right? Massive exchanges are happening. The most and the central uh, well-connected country with Thailand, with Cambodia, with China, with Myanmar, right? And you'll see a massive exchanges, including with Vietnam. So, but they did a very, very substantive planning for this, right? And they made regional investment framework. They make strategic framework. So BIMSTEC has to really undertake a kind of range of strategic, uh, what you call it, interventions, policy interventions, technological interventions, and talk about China, Vietnam, China, Myanmar, China, Laos, Thailand, Laos. You combine anything and you'll find it. And this is where we learn a big lessons that these are all doable projects, right? And this is all doable projects, and that can be easily done despite geographical segregations of Thailand. But again, it is much, since Thailand and Myanmar are integrated to a large extent as far as energy market is concerned, it is not very difficult for us to do a kind of a BIMSTEC wide exercise as far as power trading is concerned, because we also already have Sri Lanka exchanges also. Now, in all these exercises, and international institutions like ADB played a very, very critical role in providing technical support, developing economic corridor ideas, fair basis framework for benefit sharings, right? Regional power trading secretariat, all kinds of things. You know, it's such a beautiful story for us in BIMSTEC as far as the energy cooperation is concerned. Now they are getting into the next transformative action forward. Transmission regulations, prepare GMS, grid code, transmission common performance standards, right? And grid to grid power trading. It's an absolutely a kind of a far-reaching exercise they have been undertaking, and I'm sure when BIMSTEC starts thinking in this line, they can bring at least India, Bhutan, Nepal, Bangladesh could bring one set of experimentations, and Myanmar and Thailand could bring another kind of experimentations, and India and Sri Lanka also bring third variety of experimentations. The third option for BIMSTEC to do African power pool, you have ASEAN power grid. The best example is, of course, Southern African power pool. 12 countries have come together, right, of Southern African Development Community. And they trade today almost 1.5 trillion watts of electricity. And as in BIMSTEC, they also have a diverse mix of these countries have come together. The southern part would do the thermal part, and the northern part would do the hydropower projects. So, can we have a power pool in BIMSTEC? If we have to have a power pool in BIMSTEC, what are the geographical uh, uh, locations where we can do? And we did a study. Geographical locations could be, the best geographical location would be the northeast region of India, right? Where power can be brought from Nepal, Bhutan, northeast as a whole. You have huge potentials. They are generating, right? You have a whole huge coal reserves also. Then you can bring this, and And if Bangladesh requires in the evening, send it to Bangladesh. Myanmar requires, if Bhutan requires, Sri Lanka requires, send it across. So this is quite possible. And we are thinking of, we have already developed this concept, this making Northeast powerful. At the moment, our team is doing the Northeast Region Vision Document 2047 for the government. And one of our major recommendations in the vision document is to make a powerful Northeast-based powerful, where Bangladesh can access electricity anytime, anywhere, and of any amount. So these are the why Northeast. These are some of the justifications, because this is a geography which has special category states. First option is local integration. You don't need to talk about bilateralism. You don't need to talk about regionalism. Can you do very, very local? And there is already an example between Palatana in Tripura and that is Surajmani Nagar in Tripura and Komila in Bangladesh. Right? It's a beautiful. I personally visited this plant twice. Very near. Instead of taking all the way from Calcutta to Siliguri to Guwahati to Meghalaya and to Tripura, right? No, it is straight away from Bangladeshi side. And Bangladesh would provide what you call it, the bandwidth gateway, internet connectivity to the northeast part of India through the sea cable route, right? And it has happened. It is functioning so well. So can we have a local integration between Arunachal Pradesh in India and Myanmar's Michiana, right? Through Pangsau Pass, which is actually the Second World War, the Stilwell Road. Can you have one between Manipur and Mizoram, Nagaland, and Myanmar, right? The other one is you provide wheeling facility, where India is the core transit point. India will only provide transit facility. Let Bangladeshi government take electricity from Nepal, Bhutan, Northeast, wherever you want. If Myanmar does well, you can bring it from Myanmar, right? And you just provide wheeling transmission line. You can charge for the transmission line, for the usage of transmission line. So somebody would evacuate power from the generating plant, bring it to the Indian exchange, Indian transmission line, and through that, with Bangladesh, we have national. All the issues, many of the issues will fall into place. What should be done then? National reforms are required. Repositioning of natural resources need to be done. Cross-border investment in generation has to happen. Cross-border transmission, cross-border power trading, grid security, demand centers. The BIMSTEC energy center can start working on this, right? And just do one project as a kind of demonstrative project, right? Say between India, Bangladesh, and Myanmar, or linking. Demonstration effect of these projects are going to be absolutely brilliant, precisely because we have seen what is happening between India and Bangladesh, what is happening between India, Myanmar, India and Bhutan, and all these places. And you have newer sources of finance. You have traditional sources of finance. You can go to multilateral institutions, ADB, World Bank. You can go to many other institutions. But you have a newer sources like Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, where India is a major partner, China is an overwhelming partner, and it has a very, very interesting segment on improving the security and efficiency of energy supply, fostering greater use of energy, renewable energy resources. So regardless of the Belt and Road initiatives of China, AIIB can fund many of these projects, and it has already started doing this. India has borrowed from AIIB, and the other South Asian countries, Southeast Asian countries have borrowed. Say, for example, India, transmission, Andhra Pradesh government has gone to AIIB to bring this request. Only issues that would come up is the security issues of the transmission. So comprehensive security and would be there because it's a very complex geography, diplomacy, defense, societal, economic, environmental, politics, trade policies. So many things intersect when intersect or converge when you do power exchanges. It's not a simple flowing of electricity from one point to another point. It has a huge implications. So security issues have to be tackled as we have seen other parts. Grids are easy prey for militants, terrorists, or insurgents. Then the politicization of grids will happen. And transit state vulnerability would be there, right? That means what criteria for establishing transit tariffs. So all kinds of things have to be taken care of. So this is BIMSTEC as an emerging, vibrant group, right? Politicians want electricity, the institutions want electricity, the farmers would like to have, industrially, who doesn't want, right? And everybody is in search of cost-effective, reliable, quality energy, right? Electricity. If that happens, people are.
Question from Sidratul Mustaqim is that how much impact is expected from the mass adoption of green energy and the landscape of these cross-border energy exchanges?
I think if you go by the commitment of the BIMSTEC countries in the global climate change negotiations, right? Nationally determined commitments, one not only expects, but one finds it is rather mandatory for all the BIMSTEC countries to increasingly move towards green energy. There are no other options. There will be international pressures, or there will be domestic pressures. There will be the cost angle of it. There will be sustainability angle of it. So everyone would like to go for green energy. Whether you go for solar energy or you go for any kinds of energy, right? Or you go for even green hydrogen. Therefore, what is very critical at the moment is to really talk about what is this all about. Bring forth to a common platform like SANEM can do. Professor Selim Rehman, your team could bring, what these countries have as far as their international commitments are concerned. And for those international commitments to be fulfilled, what kind of green energy enabling situation these countries have to generate in respective countries and respective member countries and a region as well. Nobody has the demand and also design the supply part of it.
Thank you, sir. Sir, another question by Garul Bhujal. He asks that what has impeded the energy cooperation among the SAARC and BIMSTEC nations?
Well, you'll be surprised, at least in the BIMSTEC, you see both these institutions, SARC is already almost 40 years old now, and I happen to be a member of the independent expert group. Right, I was Indian member in the group set up by the Colombo SARC summit in 97, 98. And idea was to really review the entire activities of SARC. They set up two committees. One is eminent persons group to give a vision to SARC, right, where Professor Rehman Sovan, Professor Muchkund Dubey, they were the members. Paipan Indikar, I think Professor Paipan, right? Our group, I still remember in our group, the first Secretary General of SARC, he was there from Bangladesh. Farooq Chaudhary Sahab was there from Bangladesh, right? So when we started going through what projects and all, you will be surprised. Energy did not figure at all for energy as a major activity. And as a result of which, energy started picking up in SARC process. Our Prime Minister, the then Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee, went to Islamabad and talked about energy ring in South Asia. Then we set up a SARC Energy Center in Islamabad. But what I have found, the processes are so slow, right? As a regional organizations, and I see that happening to BIMSTEC also. 2005, you decide to do something, and you do it actually in 2023. You took 18 years almost to make a governing council and do the first meeting. What explains this? Are they so? Two reasons are this. One is both these forums, both these institutions are purely governmental institutions. So unless you change the structures of these institutions by inducting other professionals, other technocrats, other private sector, other stakeholders, it would not change much. Secondly, both these institutions they don't believe in projects, right? Whereas people want projects, people want demonstrations. Look at GMS, Greater Mekong Sub-Regions, right? And let one external actor play a critical role, like ADB played a very critical role in GMS, right? Why not we also allow ADB or World Bank to really play a critical role of pushing the projects further? Let them be concentrating only on projects, but it has to be done. So the official missionaries have to be
Mr. Pialuddin, if there is a interconnected power pool of the power supply, how do we ensure different states not misusing the network as sanctioning on one another and crippling the power systems somewhat?
That would not happen. That's why I talked about the last aspect, the security aspect of it, right? The code, the regulations framework, the cross-border institutional coordination, harmonization of policies are to be done in such a manner that every country, I think the power pools are conducted in a very, very professional, in a very, very commercial manner, right? So you have to have a very strong regulatory framework, and that too not from one country's perspective. It is the perspective of the entire region of BIMSTEC.
Thank you, sir. Sir, there is another question that is, are there any specific measures that BIMSTEC countries have taken to ensure the effective implementation?
It should not be what you call it idea driven, commitment driven. It should be do a project. Idea is a project. Commitment is also a project now, right? So it should be absolutely project driven. One demonstrative project, and you see what happens to BIMSTEC, right? This is what is required in SARC and BIMSTEC too.
Thank you, sir. So there is another question by Akhtaruজ্জামান.
Really done any work on that particular aspect. So I would not be able to comment, but that's such kind of regulatory framework has to be in place.
So there are all the questions. I would like to request the audience, if you have any question, you can raise your hand option and ask Sir directly.
Professor Lama, I have a question.
Yeah.
Yes, so the question is, thank you. No, excellent presentation. I would say that, it's so informative, and that I personally learned quite a lot. And I think our participants also will share your presentation with the participants. One particular question is when it comes to energy and the power generation. Uh, you talked about this kind of the trade and different models, and also the involvement of uh, Asian Development Bank and other international organizations. But how do you see? Because there are options like moving, concentrating on the renewable energy like hydroelectricity, coal-based power plants, or nuclear, or different other options. But at the same time, there are issues like whether when it comes to impact on environment, this renewable energy should get the right kind of emphasis. Gas-based or coal-based, or oil-based power plants, which have not only environmental impact, but also at the countries like Bangladesh, who are heavily dependent on importing like LNG or importing coal, which have important implications for its macroeconomic stability as well. So I think my question was to, how do you see the future of renewable energy trading in South Asia or among the BIMSTEC countries, and how do you see the role of the international organizations like even AIIB, the investment bank, whether they would be willing to finance these kind of feasible projects?
Is that except a country like Bhutan and Nepal, most of the countries are overwhelmingly fossil fuel based energy generators, right? That fact remains. And on the other hand, the emerging compulsions for all these countries to steadily cut down, right, fossil fuel based energy generation is actually triggered by what is happening at the global level in terms of climate change discourses or negotiations. They could move to a green energy regime at least by that particular year, right? Provided the goalpost is not changed. If they revise, instead of 2050, I have done the commitment today, and after 10 years, I say we could not do it in 20. We don't think that we'll be able to do it 2050. I raise the time limit to, right, to move away from fossil fuel based energy. Are people so conscious that it becomes an election issue? It becomes an issue of high politics, right, where governments would be forced to act upon it and move to energy, green energy, right? Such kind of situations do not exist today, as of today, right? So I see the possibility because of domestic company, Thailand, Myanmar, Sri Lanka would come together and say, okay, this is the green energy plan for us, right? And this is what we have to do it, regardless of what domestic compulsions, regardless of what external external pressures, right? Can BIMSTEC do that? That is the question. Does BIMSTEC have that sagacity? Does BIMSTEC have that authority to put together these 5, 7, 8 countries and say that this is the commitment and let's go by that? If you go by the experience of the SARC countries, right? I don't think that is also possible because you have memorandums after memorandum, SARC summit declarations after summit declarations, yet no action happens. No action happens, right? So, given that situation, so I would say the possibility at the moment of moving steadily to green energy seems to be little remote, right? Because I don't think any government would be able to take actions because of economic compulsions, because of political compulsions, right? Therefore, some of these how to generate, how to do a consensus building among the BIMSTEC countries to move towards green energy in this manner. What are the steps forward? India has its own compulsions. Bangladesh, as you said, has its own compulsions. How do we go about it? So, can there be a kind of a very clear roadmap based on very, very, very uh, comprehensively carried out studies? Unless and until you do that, national positions will not change because of the BIMSTEC, because BIMSTEC does not have its regional position on such issues.
Professor Lama, I think your
Thank you.
answer was just to the point and fantastic, because what you also observed that the fossil fuel lobby is very strong, and there is a strong political economy behind keeping that lobby alive, and that actually create that kind of many obstacles to moving towards the greener energy or renewable energy regime. So that's one of the biggest obstacle. Uh, so I fully agree with you. Shuri, there are two more questions probably on the in the chat box. I can see.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Jasbir
sir.
Singh,
Yeah.
say.
Jasbir Singh asked that what is the limitation of BIMSTEC on regional cooperation between these party countries?
Energy cooperation. I think it's energy cooperation.
Yes. Uh, does the energy cooperation really have the capacity to push the countries to willingly come together for energy regime?
Oh, yes, definitely. You know, as I told you, stakeholders, once they holders and energy, electricity has so diverse stakeholders. As I told you, who doesn't require electricity? A banker to a lady in a household, to a doctor, to a education, anyone would require. It's so basic. So anything that really caters to the basic requirement of an individual, institution, agency, lobby, right? I think that would be highly appreciated. I would say trade could be controversial, right? As we have found in SARC and in BIMSTEC. I would say investment could be controversial. I would say even tourism could be controversial, right? But I don't think electricity would ever be controversial, right? Because everybody requires it. So if you do an electricity project, exchange project, and if you generate a critical mass of stakeholders, that would trigger examples of, yes, it can be done. Why it was not done so far? Like Bangladesh and India. Nobody thought that Bangladesh and India will have national grid to national grid interconnections, right? Today, between Bangladesh and India, there are, it has opened so many possibilities. I gave you examples of 6 six things which are happening, right? Industrialist, Adani did a plant in Godda, what you call it, uh, in Jharkhand, exclusively to cater to Bangladeshi needs. Nobody had thought about it. Nobody had really thought about it, right? So one good act or demonstrative project could trigger so many intersectoral interconnections. It could be in trade, it could be in education, it could be on transport, communications, on anything. And that is what is required. And that is what is regionalism all about. But only thing is, we should not have a kind of a lock, stock, and barrel imported model of regionalism. Like in SARC, we did a big mistake, right? We thought that the European European Union model will work here in SARC. So we said that let's follow European Union model. Let's have first preference, let's emphasize only on trade. And let's do a preferential trading arrangement first, then move to free trade, then move to customs union, then to common market, and finally to SARC economic union, right? That model did not work because that model does not suit the political, does not suit the socio-economic structures. It just does not suit anyone. So we should have our own model. We should have our own model. This is why. That's why I am trying to give you 5, 6 different models of energy exchange. Why should you bring a model and impose it here? You can do a combinations of all these models, right? And do it. This is what we are saying.
For settling the deficit in the power exchange between the countries.
Where is the fund in BIMSTEC? Do you get it? Where is the fund in SARC to do a project? We had a SARC Development Fund office located in Bhutan, right? After so many years, we finally located the SARC development, but the modalities are so complicated, right? The outside, like AIIB. AIIB, everybody knows that AIIB has given funds for transmission lines, even to northeast states like Assam, Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, right? So many things. So why not we use of these funds? But once we do this, then possibly ADB, World Bank, and other development agencies, multilateral development agencies could come together and, like they have done in other parts, could create a kind of a pool which could be used for a regional project, not a bilateral project, but a regional project. Can it be done? Because bilateral projects are in a case funded by one of the partners, right?
General, concerned about the sovereignty and the resource nationalism often figure. ESP in our part of the world, how do we navigate through this concern by vice versa energy cooperation?
See, whether it is a small country, whether it is a big country, whether it's a medium-sized country, when you enter into a regional pact, first thing you'll have to forget is, I am a big country, so I have a bigger sovereignty. She is a small country and she has a smaller sovereignty, right? Sovereignty is sovereignty, but the national interest is national interest. One country really stands for its national interest, right? So resource nationalism actually emanates from the fact that someone in the group might have said that, hey, you are a small country, your national sovereignty is smaller than mine, right? Or you are a big country. Somebody would have said, you are a big country, your national sovereignty is bigger than mine. Your identity is bigger than mine. Such kind of countervailing thinking, right? Such kind of contradictions in the process of cooperation and integration is a theme like beneficial bilateralism, right? India practiced unilateralism. The global world, when the economic cooperation and developing among developing countries, the idea was generated as the countries in the north withdrew from the North-South dialogue after the Brand Commission report in 1980, 81. Uh, the countries in the north started talking about a new term known as benevolent neutrality. Hey, you go and do your ECDC. We will remain neutral to what you're doing. Well, such kind of positioning would not wherever, right? Let's say, for example, in European Union, as they were increasing the membership of European Union, huge countries, right? Smaller countries. What they did was for about 3 years, 5 years, they trained these, build these capacities in these countries to, to enable them to come to a platform of European Union. It's not that Turkey, you come today, Hungary, you come today, Poland, you come today, or some other countries, so you come today. No, it was never like this. They gave them a space where they were made to be enabled to come to a platform. In South Asia, we have not done that. In BIMSTEC, we haven't done that, right? We might have to do that. We might have to do that. So you have several areas where we lack, right? And that has and the prolonged neglect of regional institutions by member countries, right, have second the faith of public in general about regional institutions. Who talks about SAR when the summit has, when the charter says that every year there will be a SAR summit, right? And for last 10 years there is no SAR summit. Governments are not doing this, states are not doing this, it's fine. But the how much of faith, how much of confidence people have lost vis-a-vis regional institutions are nobody can talk about. Nobody talks about it. Nobody really talks about it. In 80s, late 80s, when SARC was started, everything was people were so inspired by SARC process. Oh, now this will happen, and it did for at least 10 years. Poverty Commission report, a report on greenhouse impact effect, a report on disaster management, report on preferential trading area arrangement. It did for 10 years. But look at today. Look at today, the situation. So how do you rebuild this confidence among the people of BIMSTEC, among the people of SARC? Like, say, for example, we did a motor vehicle agreement in 2015. India, Nepal, Bhutan, and Bangladesh. Today it is 9 years after we signed the agreement. People were expecting that agreement will be put in place and Bhutanese vehicles would come to India, Indian vehicles will go to Bangladesh, right? Tell me what happened. What happened? Someone would say, oh, protocol has been done. Someone say trial run it has been done. But you take 9 years to do the trial run, right? You take 9 years to do the what you call it, the exchange of vehicles and all. That means now onwards, instead of signing MOU agreement first you practice it, then you sign MOU and agreement, and I think that will rebuild people's confidence and faith. You get it? Because there is no point in signing, like we have a South Asian food security, food bank. Nobody knows. Food Bank, we initiated the process in 1987-88, right? Food security and food bank. No, no, none of the national disaster emergencies, right, could use the food bank facility because nobody knows where is the food bank. Nobody knows how food is to be taken to a disaster affected geography in Nepal in 2015, in Bangladesh in cyclone, right? Nobody knows. So people have lost faith and confidence on this kind of, because of these reasons, on regional institutions. It's very difficult to build. Some of us who have been watching, some of us who have been evaluating and 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 observing the process of regionalism, we are, we know what we, by now we realize that this the approach is wrong, the orientation is wrong, right? The actors and the institutions involved have to undergo a drastic change.
Thank you so
That-
much, Professor Lama. I think your points towards the end was these are extremely important, especially your experience. I know how long you have been involved in this regional integration process in South Asia. You were among the stalwarts who actually build those confidence. But eventually, these confidence, the institutions, organizations in the region, they lost importance for various reasons, and probably that is an area where we can also discuss in the future too. But I think we must thank you because I know how busy you are, and probably you are traveling too, Professor Lama. and thank you so much. I think all of us, we are immensely benefited from this discussion. And
Thank you very much.
we look forward to receiving your presentation. If you allow us to share this presentation with the participants, that will be really great.
Sure.
So if you can send this presentation through email. And for the participants, we have recorded this discussion, and Sanim is going to upload this discussion by session in the YouTube very soon. I'm sure, Suridi, you are doing this.
Yes.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Surit. Thank you, Professor. And
Thank
thank you
you.
all the participants. I saw
Thank
quite a few participants. That means the hope is still there.
Yeah. Yes, hope is still there. Yes.
Yes. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Thank you.
So I'll say bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Bye
much.
then. Bye, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. And we are inviting you for our next session, which will be on 23 September, 2 p.m. at Bangladesh time. We hope we will also see you there. Thank you so much for everyone joining. Thank you so much, Professor Lam. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.